Thanks for tuning in to watch The Ordinary Filmmaker. I've got a lot of news to cover today. We have new specifications on the Canon EOS R3. We have a new Sony camera coming out tomorrow. I've got a correction I need to make on a review video I put out just yesterday. And boy, do I have a ton to cover in behind the scenes. But our big news story today is that the Canon EOS R3 will have a 24 megapixel sensor. Now this is according to Canon rumors. As you're aware, the Tokyo Olympics are underway. These were supposed to come out last year. But, of course, they just commenced last Friday in Tokyo. And at the Olympics, the R3 has made a special appearance. It's there, it's taking shots, and based on the feedback we caught of the R3 in the wild, it's going to have right around a 24 megapixel sensor. Now, we don't know if it's going to be like 23.8 or 24.2, but it's going to be right around there, and Craig is usually very good when it comes to this stuff. So, where does that put the R3 in the lineup? Well, it has a larger sensor than the 1DX Mark III, and it can shoot faster than the 1DX Mark III. The 1DX Mark III tops out at 20 frames per second electronic, whereas the R3 can do 30 frames per second electronic at 24 megapixels. It also has an improved autofocus system, better than what's in the 1DX Mark III. And not only can it track humans and animals using their eye and body and head, but it can also track cars and motorcycles. So this is great if you're covering motorsports. One thing I notice about motorsports, it's a bit like baseball sometimes. It can be very, very boring until something happens. And when that something happens, it happens very, very quickly. So having a camera like the EOS R3, the 1DX Mark III, or the Alpha One that can shoot 30 plus frames per second with an accurate autofocus system really, really helps. So the cameras at the Olympics, it's 24 megapixel sensor. The only thing we really don't know too much about are the video specs. It will have oversampled 4K. We just don't know how much. We also don't know the level of detail or where the camera will overheat or if it's going to have that 30-minute record limit. I'm hoping because it's got a larger body, it's not going to overheat. And to be fair, if you've got like a small rig on your camera and you've got a Ninja 5, then you're probably not going to have to worry about overheating. I've shot for hours on the R5 today out in 84-degree plus heat, and with the Ninja 5, it hasn't overheated once. Well, with the exception of one time, which I'll tell you about in behind the scenes, but that was user error. So, the Canon EOS R3, where does it sit in Canon's lineup? Well, when it comes to stills, it's going to be above the R5, but with video, it looks like the R5 is still going to have better video specs than the R3. The R3 is designed to replace the 1DX Mark III. It's a mirrorless version of the 1DX Mark III, but it's bumped up in upgrade, so it's more capable. It has a larger sensor. It can shoot faster. It's got better autofocus. It's just an overall better camera. It's kind of like the 1DX Mark III. Well, it's kind of like being the 1DX Mark IV, but being a mirrorless version. So it becomes the de facto flagship camera for Canon. But that should be short-lived until the EOS R1 comes out. When is that going to be? Well, we just don't know. It was rumored that we were going to get some sort of a development announcement right around NAB this year, but that could be next year, and I wouldn't be surprised if the R1 comes out sometime around 2022 to 2023. And once the R1 comes out, it is going to have better video specs than the R5. I don't think they'll be a light year ahead of the R5, but I think we won't have overheating anymore. Sadly, I think we'll still have that 30-minute record limit, but I think we'll have better detailed video, and hopefully this time around, they give us oversample 1080. I mean, Sony does it, so how hard is it to give us oversample 1080? Even their C100 does 4K oversample 1080. I don't know, it just surprises me. So the R1 is going to have better video specs than the R5, and on the photo side, it's going to have the best photo specs of any Canon mirrorless camera, better than the R3, better than the R5. And I expect it's going to have a sensor somewhere around 45 to 55 megapixels. Most likely, probably around 45, maybe 50. I don't think they're going to go up to 55 or 60. I think that's going to be stepping on the toes of their high megapixel camera that's going to be around 100 megapixels. That's, again, supposed to be announced coming out in 2022 or 2023. All right, now let's move on to Sony. Tomorrow morning. Sorry for interrupting myself, but just a quick reminder, please like and subscribe. It does two things. It tells me you like my content, but it also helps the channel grow because it feeds YouTube's algorithm, and the more likes and subscribes it sees, the more it's willing to recommend my channel. And now, back to our regular schedule video. Tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, or Eastern Daylight Time, or 1500 hours London time, Sony's got a virtual press conference to announce the Sony ZV-E10. Doesn't really roll off the tongue, does it? They need a better name for that. This is a model number. It shouldn't be the name of the camera. Come on, Sony, give us a name. You're great at naming things. Remember the Sony Walkman? That was perfect. Let's come out with names for your cameras instead of crazy hyphenations. All right, so back to this camera. It is not their entry level, but it's in that camp. It's in that segment. You're going to be able to record 4K at 24, 25, and 30 frames per second, but that's it. It tops out at 30 frames per second, so you're not going to get high-speed 4K at 120 frames per second. You will get 1080, and most likely it'll have 120 frames per second in 1080. It's going to have a microphone and a headphone jack. It's going to have the same size megapixel sensor as the R3, so it's going to be 24 megapixels, and it's going to have a single SD card slot, so again, leading it to that entry-level segment. S-Log 2, S-Log 3, and S-Cinetone, as well as support for HLG, but I'm looking at this thing right here, and first of all, my apologies, I should have given credit to Sony Alpha Rumors for providing this information. I do hope that their source got this wrong, or at least partly wrong, for this next item. I'm going to put my glasses on and make sure I'm reading it right. No Sony's new menu system. All right, so other than errors in grammar and syntax, it's not going to have Sony's new menu system? WTF, are you serious? I mean, this is like they borrowed Canon's cripple hammer. Casey, you've tormented me. Every time I say cripple hammer now, I'm always picturing the hammer coming from the side to club me. But that's your dish. That's your thing. I'm not going to steal it from you, but I still feel that hammer. And it's a pretty big blow. If you're new to Sony, that old menu system is going to drive you up the wall. It actually makes usability a challenge. I've had the Sony a7S III. I've used the Sony a7 III, and when I was looking at buying the Sony a7 III, I went to a camera store. Everybody behind the counter said, oh yeah, it's a great camera. We use it all the time. All right, so here's my video settings. Let's see how easy it's set up, because I can't figure it out. 4K, 30 frames per second, H.265, neutral color profile. Let's go ahead and set that all up. A few of the items, they couldn't figure out how to find it. They knew it did it. Sony says it does it, but we couldn't find it. And even they had trouble going through the menu system. And it's not that they weren't competent. Like any camera, if you use it a certain way, you're not familiar with all those other settings. And if the menu design isn't intuitive, then you feel like you're completely lost. And when you're out in the field, the last thing you want to do is have to pull up your phone to try and look at a 600-page manual and to try to figure out how to use something. The a7S III, I only had it for about 2 weeks. But after a day or two, I could pick up that camera and I could find things myself. I'd used Canons for all my life. And I just had to reacquaint myself to the menu system on Sony. And then, yes, I knew where I should find this item. It would be under the red menu or the blue menu or the green menu. It was brilliant. I loved it. The new menu design is great. But Sony, if this is in your camera, the new ZV-E10, don't treat this new menu design as some sort of feature that's only available to those upper class or special people who are able to spend more money on their cameras. Don't do that, because it affects ease of use and it becomes a barrier to entry. Don't do that. Your new menu system is great. Enable it for everybody. So that's why I do hope that this isn't correct. We'll know at 10 a.m. tomorrow, Eastern Daylight Time. All right, now for a correction to a video I did, a video review of the YongNuo 85mm f1.8. That's a really terrific lens. It's the first third-party lens to have a control ring, and it has a weather sealing gasket. All this for $398. The problem is, I said it was $272, and while that price is correct for the EF version, the RF version is $398, and that's the version I did in the review. So, again, the purpose of the video was to look at that lens and the Canon 85mm f2 and answer the question, who is it for? So it's entry level, and why would you spend an extra $200 for the Canon over the YongNuo? And very simply put, the Canon has a macro capability, so I can zoom in, well, not zoom in, but I can get the lens a whole lot closer to the subject. And as I showed in my video yesterday, I had a pot of plants, and I was able to capture, walk up as close as I could with the YongNuo, and I captured half the planter box. But with the Canon 85mm, I was able to walk up so much closer that basically a single daisy filled the entire frame. So if you're interested in macro in any way whatsoever, then yes, the $200 is worth it. But to have a control ring, to have weather sealing, $398, it's a good deal. All right, now let's go behind the scenes. Now I'm just checking I'm still recording video, and I'm still recording audio. It's almost 5 o'clock. I recorded this at my lunch twice, once at my break, and again now. And here's what happened. Now the first time around when I recorded, I didn't record audio on here, and there was no audio on my video feed, so I couldn't even use that. So I went outside and re-recorded again. Only this time I didn't really think too much. Didn't let it click that I had no audio on the video feed, when that tells me I should check the camera because I probably left it in 4K 120. So I recorded 25 minutes in 4K 120 using the Ninja 5. Took it inside, realized, oops. So I stewed a little bit, then I came out on my break. Got everything set up. But when I tapped the record button on the Ninja, I didn't notice that the red line around the frame didn't light up, which means while I tapped the screen, I didn't tap it hard enough to record. So I recorded 3 times. Now, my wife says that I can be a bit of a smart arse sometimes, but in this case, not even my arse was smart enough to save me from all these problems. The only reason I'm recording it again is not because I know this video is going to produce 6,000 views, it's going to generate hundreds and hundreds of dollars of revenue. No, because I'm doing this again because I will not give up. I will not surrender. I will not let technology or my memory get the better of me, so that's why I'm recording it yet again. I'm frustrated. My voice is a little bit hoarse. I haven't screwed up this badly since probably 6 months ago. And I think I know, looking at my watch here, one of the reasons why I'm having trouble. It's 84 degrees, 86 degrees, the humidity's saturated, and I'm British. Well, half British, half Irish, and so you know where we live. It's way up there in the north. It's cool and cold, rains a lot. This continental climate of 84, 85 degrees, I just start swimming in my own skin, so I'm going to blame that. But that's a perfect segue into this set that I have right here. It's hot. When I situate amongst the trees, what happens is as the sun moves, the lighting changes. And today I've got huge, big cumulus nimbus clouds, thundering ones, and then I've got these cirrus clouds, and then I've got completely blue sky. And so what happens is the lighting is changing all the time. Where I'm sitting here on my deck, above me I have these canvases that can be rolled forward and rolled backwards. So I have a sunshade. And right over here I have another blind that's pulled down that further restricts the sun. So you can see that, and I'm looking at my Ninja right here, you can see that the lighting hasn't changed too much. Now it is a little bright right here, but that's because the sun's hitting it at that angle. But it's not bright enough for the R5 because it uses an evaluative method in video, and even in manual, you do not have a choice. You cannot change it. It's evaluative. So if I pump up the brightness too much in the back, guess what happens? Yeah, I become underexposed. It's not like the Sonys. The Sonys will lock focus on the person, on the autofocus point, and you're going to have really good exposure, especially in this scenario here. But the problem, of course, with this setting is I don't have a lot of direct light coming in. I don't even have a lot of diffused light. So I have a Godox flat panel light here, and I have a ring light right here. So that helps bring up my brightness a little bit so I'm exposed properly, and I'm shooting in 8-bit. I find when I'm fiddling around and trying new settings, it's better to stick with 8-bit until I get things set up, because working with log is a whole lot more difficult. I really do wish the Canon R5 Mark II or a future firmware update will allow you to record in 10-bit and will apply the log automatically, using Canon's engineers to do it in a way so that just like 8-bit looks really good, 10-bit will look really good without having us to go into post and really fight with it sometimes. Or sometimes I have a ton of LUTs, and sometimes, okay, this LUT works, okay, now I'll try this LUT, or I'll try that LUT. And I have one LUT series, which is really great because it brings out the natural colors, but it does it in exposure level. So if I look a little bit under or overexposed, well, I can choose that LUT at a minus 2/3 EV, or a minus 670 EV, or plus 670 EV, etc. So I'm trying this out. Hopefully it looks pretty good. Again, the Ninja things look pretty good. But yeah, I've been having a bad day. So that being said, if you like my content, please like and subscribe. But also, if you're looking at buying anything off Amazon, or if you're looking at buying anything from B&H, please use my links down below. It doesn't cost you any extra. And even if you're not looking at buying anything in my links, just click on any of those links. And then when you're at the site, search for what you want. I will still get credit for the items you purchased, and I get about a 2% back, and that goes into buying the camera equipment that you see here. Now, my channel has kind of stagnated in the last few months. I haven't grown as much. We also haven't had a lot of news, so since we got the Alpha 1, it's been pretty dead, and I haven't been able to grow because there hasn't been that news. But the downside is I haven't been able to buy an awful lot. I just recently bought the 100mm f2.8, but I haven't really bought much anything else, and I still want to buy the Sony a7S III and the 28-70. But that, at the present income, would cost me about 10 months plus of income, whereas this time last year would only have cost me 2 months. So, and do you remember last year? I bought the R5, the 24-105, then I bought the 50mm f1.2, the 800mm, the 2x extender, the Manfrotto 504X tripod with head. And I did all that with income coming in from the channel. So I will be buying more stuff, but I'm not going to put myself into debt over the channel. I'm going to use the income from the channel to grow it. So please use my affiliate links. It really does help the channel grow. But that's it for now. I'm losing my voice. Whether this works or not, I am done. This is my final take. So if you're watching this, thumbs up. It worked. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.